mother was screaming, begging, crying in front of everyone. She'd been caught hiding her feverish child in a storage room because she had no one else to turn to. And as her boss fired her in front of dozens of strangers, one man sat silently in the corner watching it all unfold. He could have walked away. He could have done nothing. But what he did next didn't just change her life. It broke me. It'll break you too. This is a true story that'll make you believe in second chances again. But I'm warning you, you'll need tissues for this one. Don't click away. What happens in the next 10 minutes will stay with you forever. Welcome to Reality Untold Stories. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and comment your view on the story and where you're watching from. Section 1. The Unexpected Visit. Let me tell you about a morning that changed everything. It was a rainy Wednesday in Seattle, and Daniel Harper was about to do something he hadn't done in years. He was going to visit one of his restaurants dressed like someone who had nothing. Now, Daniel wasn't just any restaurant owner. He had built Harbor Grill from the ground up, 28 locations across 4 states. But that morning, he pulled on an old worn jacket, faded jeans, and a cap that had seen better days.
Why?
Because something was very wrong at his downtown Seattle location. The numbers told him a painful story. In just 10 months, 19 people had quit or been fired. 19 good people gone. Numbers on a report can tell you something's broken, but they can't tell you why. For that, you have to show up and see it with your own eyes. When Daniel walked through those restaurant doors, the smell of grilled fish and fresh bread filled the air. The place was packed. Customers everywhere, phones ringing, orders flying. And that's when he saw her. Her name was Jessica Torres. She was maybe 28, moving through the chaos like she'd been born to do this work. She caught a falling plate before it could crash. She smiled at an angry customer and turned their frown into a laugh. She knew every table, every order, every face. Daniel sat in a corner booth and just watched. This woman was incredible. But something wasn't right. Every few minutes, Jessica would glance toward the back hallway. Her hand would slip into her pocket to check her phone. Her shoulders would tense up. Then, quietly, she'd disappear through a door marked staff only. 3 minutes passed. 5 minutes. The other servers scrambled to cover her tables. Some rolled their eyes. One whispered something that made another laugh. When Jessica came back out, Daniel could see it clearly in her eyes. She'd been crying. Before Daniel could even process what he'd seen, a door slammed open so hard it made everyone jump. Torres. The voice cut through every conversation in the restaurant. The man who came storming out was named Victor Kane. His name tag said General Manager. He was maybe 45, with the kind of face that enjoyed having power over people. What were you doing back there? Victor's voice got louder with every word. Do you know how many customers you just ignored? Daniel looked around. No customers looked unhappy. The other servers had covered everything perfectly. This wasn't about the customers. This was about control. Sir, I was only gone for 5 minutes, Jessica started, her voice shaking. 45 minutes. You've been abandoning your station for 45 minutes. That's not true. I timed it myself. Don't you dare talk back to me. Victor stepped closer, invading her space in a way that made Daniel's hands tighten around his coffee cup. I know exactly what you've been doing. You think I'm stupid? You think I don't know what happens in my own restaurant? Jessica's voice dropped to almost a whisper. Mr. Kane, please. Can we talk about this in your office? Please. Oh, now you want privacy? After you've been hiding your sick kid in my storage closet? The words fell like bombs. The entire restaurant went silent. Forks stopped moving. Conversations died. Everyone turned to watch. Jessica's face crumpled for just a second before she forced it back together. My son has a fever of 104. The daycare sent him home. I called everyone I know, and nobody could help. My sister lives 8 hours away. I couldn't miss another shift. You said 3 absences meant I'd be fired automatically. Her voice broke. He's not near the kitchen. He's in the storage area in the very back, away from everything. I made sure. I checked every 5 minutes. I don't care what you made sure of. Victor crossed his arms, clearly enjoying the audience. You brought a sick child into my workplace. That's grounds for immediate termination. Please. Tears were streaming down Jessica's face now. And Daniel Harper made a decision that would change everything. Please, Mr. Kane. I just need today. I need today's pay. Jessica's voice was barely a whisper now. I'll figure something out for tomorrow. I promise. Please don't do this to me. Victor Kane looked around at all the watching faces, and Daniel could see it in his eyes. The man was enjoying this. He liked having an audience for his cruelty. You should have thought about that before you turned my storage closet into a daycare center. Victor raised his voice, so everyone could hear clearly. Jessica Torres, you're fired. Effective immediately. Get your things, get your kid, and get out of my restaurant. The whole place had gone completely silent. Even the kitchen sounds seemed to have stopped. The only noise was soft piano music playing from the speakers, cheerful and completely wrong for what was happening. Mr. Kane, please. Jessica tried one more time, her voice small and broken. You have 5 minutes. If you're still here in 6, I'm calling the police and having you escorted out. Jessica stood frozen for a moment, like she couldn't believe this was really happening. Then, with her head held as high as she could manage, she walked toward the storage area. She came out less than a minute later, carrying a little boy, maybe 6 years old, wrapped in a thin jacket. The child's face was bright red with fever, his small body limp against his mother's shoulder. Jessica walked past Victor, without looking at him. She walked past the other servers who wouldn't meet her eyes. She walked past the customers who pretended to be interested in their food. And for just a second, as she passed Daniel's booth, their eyes met. In that brief moment, Daniel saw everything. He saw the fear of a mother with nowhere left to turn. He saw the exhaustion of someone who'd been fighting too long with too little help. He saw the desperate math of someone trying to figure out how to pay for medicine, for food, for a roof over their heads when they had exactly $0 and 0 options. It was a look Daniel remembered from 35 years ago. A look he'd seen in his own mother's eyes when they had nothing. Jessica pushed through the door into the cold Seattle rain. Daniel watched through the window as she started walking, her son pressed against her chest, disappearing into the gray afternoon. She had no car, no umbrella, nothing. And that's when Daniel stood up. He didn't follow Jessica. Not yet. Instead, he walked straight to where Victor Kane stood looking satisfied with himself. Mr. Kane, Daniel said quietly, I need you to tell me your full name and position. Victor barely glanced at him, taking in the shabby clothes and worn-out shoes. His lip curled with disgust. I'm the general manager. If you've got a complaint about what just happened, you can fill out a comment card at the front. Victor Kane, general manager at the downtown Seattle location. Employed by Harbor Grill restaurant chain for 8 years. Transferred 6 times in those 8 years. Daniel's voice was quiet, but something in his tone made Victor's smirk disappear. 19 employees have quit or been fired in the past 10 months at this location alone. Would you say that's accurate? Victor's face went pale. Who are you? Daniel pulled out his real wallet and showed his ID. Daniel Harper. I own this company. And you're fired. Effective immediately. You can't do that. I have rights. There are procedures. There are procedures for a lot of things, Daniel said, his voice like ice. Including documenting a pattern of harassment and creating a hostile work environment. You'll be hearing from our legal department within the hour. Leave now. Security will escort you out. 2 security guards appeared, as if on cue. Victor grabbed his jacket and stormed toward the exit, his face red with anger and humiliation. Daniel turned to the stunned staff gathered nearby. Who's the assistant manager here? A woman in her 30s stepped forward nervously. That's me, sir. Linda Patterson. Miss Patterson, you're the acting general manager as of right now. Can you handle the rest of today? Yes, sir. Absolutely. Good. Everyone else, back to work, please. Daniel walked out to his car, already pulling out his phone. Daniel sat in his car with the rain drumming on the roof, and he made a call to his assistant, Robert. Robert, I need everything you can legally find on Jessica Torres. She was just fired from our downtown location. Employment file, work history, whatever we have. I need it in the next 2 hours. 2 hours later, Robert called back with information that made Daniel's chest feel tight. Jessica Torres, age 28. Bachelor's degree in restaurant management from Seattle University. Graduated top of her class 5 years ago. After graduation, she worked at the Waterfront Hotel for 4 years as a dining services coordinator. Her supervisor wrote, "Natural leader. Consistently exceeds every expectation. Has real management potential." Then what happened? Daniel asked. Then there's a gap. Almost 2 years with no employment at all. What does her application say about the gap? Robert's voice became gentle. Family medical emergency. Husband deceased. Daniel closed his eyes. Go on. I found a marriage certificate from 6 years ago. Jessica Carter married Thomas Torres. And a death certificate from 18 months ago. Thomas Torres, age 30. Cause of death, complications from a car accident and resulting infections. There it was. The story behind the broken woman he'd seen today. What about her financial situation? Significant medical debt from the accident and hospital stays. Total across 3 collection agencies is about $48,000. Car was repossessed 8 months ago. She's currently renting month to month in a building that honestly shouldn't be rented to anyone. And Daniel, she has a son named Cameron, 6 years old. Daniel sat there in silence, letting it all sink in. Then he said, "Send me everything. And Robert, I need the complete file on Victor Kane too. Every complaint, every incident, everything that was swept under the rug." The files arrived within an hour. Daniel spent the next 3 hours reading, his anger building with each page. Victor Kane had a pattern of behavior that stretched back years. Complaints from employees about stolen tips, verbal harassment, unfair scheduling, playing favorites. Each time, instead of being fired, he'd just been moved to a different location. Someone in management had been playing musical chairs with the problem instead of solving it. But right now, Daniel needed to focus on Jessica Torres. He stared at her application photo, a professional picture showing a young woman with a warm smile and hopeful eyes. The person he'd seen today had been a shadow of that. Worn down by life. Defeated by circumstances that should never defeat anyone. Daniel thought about his own story. When he was 10 years old, his mother had lost her job at the factory. They'd been evicted from their apartment. They'd lived in their car for 9 months, parked behind different businesses, trying to stay invisible. His mother would cry at night when she thought he was asleep, trying to figure out how to feed them, how to keep them safe, how to give him any kind of future. Then a man named Samuel Wright, who owned a small diner, had found them sleeping in their car behind his restaurant. Instead of calling the police, Samuel gave his mother a job, a small apartment above the diner, and something more valuable than either of those things. He gave her dignity. Samuel used to say, "People don't fail because they're lazy or because they don't care. They fail because nobody ever gives them a real chance when they need it most." Those words had built Daniel's entire business. Every policy, every benefit, every decision came back to that principle. And somehow, managers like Victor Kane had created exactly the opposite environment. Daniel picked up his phone and called the number on Jessica's application. It rang 4 times. Then a tired voice answered. "Hello. Miss Torres, this is Daniel Harper. I own Harbor Grill restaurant chain. I witnessed what happened this afternoon, and I'd like to talk to you about it. Would you be willing to meet with me?" A long silence. Then, in a voice filled with confusion and fear, "Am I in trouble? Because if this is about legal action, you're not in trouble. The opposite, actually. Mr. Kane has been terminated," Daniel continued. "But I'd like to discuss your situation. Would you meet me tomorrow at the restaurant? Say 2 o'clock in the afternoon? It'll be quiet between lunch and dinner service." Jessica's voice was barely audible. "I don't understand. Why would you want to help me?" "Because what happened to you today was wrong," Daniel said simply. "Because I think you deserve better. And because..." He paused. "Because someone gave me and my mother a chance when we had nothing. I've spent 30 years trying to pay that forward. Will you give me the chance to explain?" Another long silence. Finally, 2 o'clock tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll be there. The next day, Jessica arrived exactly on time, carrying Cameron on her hip. The little boy looked better. The fever had broken, and his eyes were brighter, but he clung to his mother like he was afraid to let go. Daniel was already there waiting. He stood when they approached. Miss Torres, thank you for coming. Please sit down. Daniel gestured to a booth. Can I get you anything? Water? Juice for Cameron. We're fine, Jessica said quietly, sliding into the booth and keeping Cameron close. You said you wanted to talk. I do. But first, I want to apologize. Daniel's voice was sincere. What happened to you yesterday was completely unacceptable. Mr. Kane's behavior violated everything my company is supposed to stand for. He's been terminated, and he won't work at any of my locations again. Jessica's eyes widened. You fired him because of me? I fired him because of a pattern of behavior that should have been stopped years ago. What happened to you was just the final incident that I witnessed personally. Daniel leaned forward slightly. Miss Torres, I looked at your employment file. I hope you'll forgive that, but I needed to understand who you are. I know about your degree, your work at the waterfront hotel, and about your husband. I'm very sorry for your loss. Jessica stiffened. You investigated me. I reviewed what was available to me as your employer, and I looked at public records. Nothing invasive. But yes, I wanted to understand your situation before I came to you with an offer. What kind of offer? Daniel pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. I'd like to offer you a position as assistant general manager at this location. You'd work under Linda Patterson, who's been promoted to general manager. The position pays $45,000 a year with full benefits. Health insurance, dental, vision, paid time off, and access to our employee emergency assistance fund. Jessica stared at him like he'd spoken in a foreign language. That's not funny. I'm not joking. Daniel's voice was gentle but firm. I watched you work yesterday morning before everything happened. You're efficient. You handle pressure beautifully. You have excellent people skills. Your degree is in restaurant management. You graduated top of your class. Your previous supervisor said you showed natural leadership abilities. You're more than qualified for this position. You watched me work for what? Maybe 2 hours? And now you want to make me a manager? Jessica's voice was sharp with disbelief. There has to be a catch. Some reason you're really doing this. No catch, Daniel said. Just recognition that you have real talent being wasted because life pushed you into pure survival mode. He paused, then continued softly. Miss Torres, I know what it's like to have nothing. When I was 10, my mother and I were homeless. We lived in her car for 9 months, right here in this city. We had nowhere to go, no way out, no hope. Jessica's expression shifted, surprise breaking through the skepticism. A diner owner named Samuel Wright found us sleeping in our car behind his restaurant. He could have called the police and had us arrested for trespassing. Instead, he gave my mother a job, gave us an apartment, and gave us a chance at a real life. Daniel met Jessica's eyes. He told my mother something I've never forgotten. He said, people don't fail because they're lazy. They fail because nobody ever gives them a real chance. I built my entire company on that principle. So this is guilt, Jessica said quietly, looking down at Cameron who had fallen asleep in her arms. You feel bad about what happened. This is recognizing an opportunity to help someone who deserves it, Daniel replied. He pushed the folder closer to her. Inside is information about our Employee Assistance Fund. It can help with temporary housing, emergency expenses, childcare costs. The things that create impossible situations like the one you were in yesterday. Jessica opened the folder with trembling hands. Her eyes scanned the documents, widening as she read. 60 days of subsidized rent. Interest-free emergency loans up to $5,000. Childcare assistance. Medical bill negotiation services. And you're just offering this to me? Her voice cracked. I don't understand why. Because I can. Because it's right. And because I think you're going to be excellent at this job. Daniel's voice was steady and sure. I think you can do much more than just survive, Jessica. Someone gave my mother and me a chance when we had nothing. I've spent 30 years trying to pay that forward. Let me help you." Jessica looked down at Cameron sleeping peacefully in her arms. She thought about the eviction notice sitting on her kitchen table. She thought about the debt collectors who called 3 times a day. She thought about the car she'd lost, the credit she'd destroyed, the future that had seemed to close down to nothing but trying to survive each day. She thought about Thomas, about the life they'd planned together, about how none of it had gone the way it was supposed to. And she thought about this stranger sitting across from her, offering something that seemed too good to be true but felt somehow real. "What if I'm not good at it?" she asked quietly, finally meeting his eyes. "What if I take this job and I fail?" "Then we figure out why, and we figure out what you need to succeed," Daniel said simply. "Maybe it's more training. Maybe it's a different role. Maybe something else entirely. I'm not expecting perfection, Jessica. I'm expecting you to work hard, to learn, and to care about doing good work. From what I've seen, you already do all 3. Jessica took a shaky breath. She thought about everything she'd survived in the past 2 years. Watching Thomas die. Raising Cameron alone. Working 3 part-time jobs just to barely keep a roof over their heads. Dealing with debt collectors and lawyers and bills that never stopped coming. If she could survive all of that, she could handle this. "Yes," she said firmly, her voice stronger now. "I'll take the position. I'll work harder than anyone. I'll prove that you made the right choice." Daniel extended his hand across the table with a warm smile. "Then welcome to Harbor Grill, Assistant Manager Torres." 6 months later, the downtown Seattle location had completely transformed. Employee turnover had dropped to almost 0. Customer satisfaction scores were the highest in the entire chain. Revenue had increased by 15%. Jessica had proven herself beyond anyone's expectations. She'd earned the respect of every person on her team through sheer hard work and genuine care for the people she worked with. And when Daniel's mother had a heart attack and he had to leave suddenly for 2 months to care for her, it was Jessica who stepped up without being asked. She called him late at night when the fear was loudest, not to ask for help with the business, but to remind him that his mother needed him more than the restaurants did. "Don't try to manage everything from a hospital room," she told him gently. "You hired good people. Trust us. Your mother needs you right now. That's where you should be." Daniel listened to her voice and realized something profound. He hadn't just given Jessica a second chance. She'd given him something just as valuable. She'd reminded him what really mattered. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give someone is simply believing in them when they've lost the ability to believe in themselves. And sometimes, when we reach out to help someone else, we discover that they end up saving us right back. That's what real success looks like. Not the money, not the buildings, but the lives we touch and the people we help become who they were always meant to be. That's the kind of legacy that actually matters.